Dino. No Dino. Okay, let's proceed without Dino. And just before we crack on, actually, a point of administration. If anyone's looking at the Twitter wall and wondering who Dr. Kaminsky is, he's not an unknown ad tech luminary. It turns out that there was a medical conference yesterday with the hashtag ATS, so that's why there's a few odd tweets in there. We haven't been hacked, and poor Dr. Kaminsky's probably wondering what the heck's going on as well. Anyway, I think most of those tweets have been flushed out. Our hashtag is ATSL22. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Can I just briefly get you to introduce yourselves so that people can put faces to names, even though I gave you a quick rundown?
Yeah, so my name's Rachel Fairley, and I lead brand marketing for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
Thanks, Rachel.
I'm Wael Abutanos, Director of Business Development for EMEA, mainly DSP Relations at Share-Through Exchange.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Nusha Kuchik-Sari. I look after brand and advertiser partnerships at TikTok.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And this panel session, we were expecting Dino, who was going to be... Oh, here he is! Amazing! What a way to steal the stage.
I know. You have the floor.
Were you with Dr. Kaminsky downstairs talking about medical devices? No, never mind.
I was enticed by the coffee.
Oh, maybe that needs turning on. No, it shouldn't do.
Hello?
There we go.
There we go.
Dino, welcome.
Yeah, great coffee with a great coffee cup holder as well, so Magnite.
Totally. You were not paid to say that. Okay. Dino, please introduce yourself, even though you've done a great intro onto the stage.
Hi there, I'm Dino Myers-Lamptey. I'm the founder of The Barbershop. So we describe ourselves as a strategic creative company.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And we were due to have another panellist joining this session, Libby Darley from iProspect, but unfortunately she's been taken ill today, so she wasn't able to join us. But never mind, we will crack on nevertheless. So, first question that I wanted to put out to the panel was, could you give us a bit of a perspective on what you think good creativity looks like across devices in this digital world that we're living in? So, people are consuming content on a range of different devices, on a range of different platforms. So what does creativity mean to you in that context, and what's an example of good creativity? Rachel, I'm going to start with you.
Right, that's like a compound question.
Yeah, this is classic Rachel compound question, sorry.
What do I think? I think creativity is an amazing thing that can be constrained and broken by the thought of where it's going to live and how it's going to be executed. And the context of where it is going to be and the mood of the buyer when they're going to be there is really important. But I don't know. I think that digital is just part of the mix. And what we have to come to terms with is the fact that people are in different moods and different stages in their buying or not buying. So, for example, at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, 95% of buyers are not in market in any quarter. There's only like 5% of them in market in any quarter. So you're doing two jobs at the same time. One is you're trying to engage, keep the conversation going, kind of be helpful when they're not in market. And then when they come into market, you're trying to help them solve the problem they're searching for the answer for really quickly. And so you have to understand where they look when they're doing the two different things, not being in market and being in market. And then you have to make sure that you very creatively target them. I hate the word target, but it is targeting. With what they are looking for. Not what you want to say, but what they're actually looking for. And I think a lot of brands really struggle with that, because you come up with your messaging and you just want to broadcast, and you want the same thing in every single place, and you want it all to be uniform. Or you have chaos where you just spray and pray and then hope that an ad works, kind of thing. So I think it is that. I mean, Sabrina was saying it earlier, right? It's all about the buyer and about what they actually want. And in B2B, there's a lot of learnings from B2C that we can get. But I worry about the sort of distraction of, people are using devices more than ever, and digital's more important than ever, and it'll be something else next year, It's just part of the mix.
It's really interesting that you drew the parallel to the opening panel session. There was the sort of the comment that actually a lot of our marketing needs to become a little bit more human and be reminded that there's a consumer on the other end of it. I want to hear from everyone on this, but Dino, I'm going to come to you next for your perspective on that, since no doubt you work with a whole range of brands at the barbershop.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that creativity depends on which side you're thinking about it. Creativity for me has to be it's the attention grabbing thing that is the difference. So it's not always the same thing. Sometimes things can seem very uncreative, but they're effective because they're against what the market's doing and what the norm is. So it's about finding kind of new and surprising ways to stand out and get more attention from your audience. And that's what makes it so difficult when we talk about the different kind of media channels as such, because I think that we're seeing a lot of kind of like effective creativity in new and emerging channels, whether it's like the TikToks, the Snapchat, and whatever else, which wouldn't be considered creative in the old traditional channels because of the methods and the means at which they're being kind of like the things, the creativity has been produced. So I think that's the challenge, but ultimately those are they're still creative. They're just kind of different ways to stand out and cut through. So I think that in terms of, firstly, I think as well, that the big problem the industry has is when we talk about creativity, we often talk about it in a visual kind of ad direction kind of sense, making kind of long form adverts. And largely a lot of the internet doesn't provide a platform for that. So we have to expand the definition of creativity to mean more things, but also in terms of from a media strategy perspective as well. So I think that what you're touching upon in terms of think about the creativity in terms of the moment in which communications have been delivered, the need state and the thing that's driving that connection to stand out to that person, that particular kind of moment as well. That is a creative kind of strategic decision, rather than just a visual kind of creative titillation.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah. Nisha, you've
Yes.
probably got a perspective on the notion of creativity and from a platform point of view. Tell us what you think.
I do, and I think actually my background's TV, so very, very traditional linear TV advertising, and now I work at TikTok, a very, very fast-paced digital environment, and it's amazing because there's a string that sort of a thread that runs through both of them, and that's entertainment. Creativity should be entertaining and give value in whatever context it's in. So with TikTok, we always think about it as be really, really sympathetic and native to the environment that you're in. People are showing up because they want to receive creativity in the way that it's built for platform. They want it in snackable formats. They want to have some sort of entertainment, and that could be through visuals or sounds, but ultimately, anyone who shows up is really going to be making creative impact if they're sympathetic to the environment and they're building natively to it. And that will be different to a long-form TVC or a cinema ad, but it doesn't make it any less creative or valuable. It's just very sympathetic to its environment. And understanding that is where everyone can sort of unleash and have real impact, I think.
And just to expand on that for a minute, because, as Dino just mentioned, the idea of creativity and our definition of what creative is needs to expand a bit because of the way we're consuming content. That must be really interesting from the perspective of working for a platform like TikTok, is seeing how the creativity shines through from all of the content that's produced that's very much, it's user-generated content, right? But it is inventing things that we haven't thought about before from a creative point of view. So do you find that a lot, that you will see popular formats of posts coming through that you'll think, oh, never really, we couldn't have predicted that?
I mean, yeah, there's things we couldn't predict all the time happening on TikTok, trends and moments and sound bites, and I'm sure that even amongst this audience, I could start popping out a few little phrases and it would trigger something and you recognize it, and it would be something that we would never have really thought about before. I think what's interesting is it's just mobile technology has just enabled so many people to show that creativity and show, and sort of, we always use the term democratize creativity. We've basically removed all barriers to entry, and anyone can be creative using, the ad technology, video editing, sounds, etc., that we see on platform-based, different platforms. Sorry, and so yeah, I think that's the most interesting thing that probably has been the most surprising has been the participatory nature. and community nature of creativity now. So when we see things happening on platform, those that really gain traction and seem to have the biggest impact, and that lovely word, go viral, is where people riff off each other, and there's like a moment that can be taken on, and technology has enabled us to share more, to create more, to riff on others, to be inspired by others, and that's the most interesting thing, I think, that's happening in terms of a wave of community creativity.
Yeah. We'll come back to some of that in a minute. Well, from your point of view, although you maybe are not embedded in from a day-to-day perspective in perhaps the creative side of advertising execution, what have you seen sort of shine through perhaps from some of the clients that you're working with that are using your advertising formats that you feel are sort of fueling more of a creative output?
I think it's similar to what Dino was saying regarding attention. Honestly, from an advertising perspective, anything that is able to attention is hard to grab. So anything that is able to catch the attention of someone without, annoying people too much, proves creativity, because you need to be creative to actually earn that attention. Yeah.
You're laughing, Rachel.
I'm sorry, I love that.
No way that advertising can't be annoying.
No. But that is the goal, right? Grabbing attention without annoying them. I mean, it's like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Basic KPI, maybe, Dino.
I was just going to say that it's a really interesting kind of discussion about attention, because there's this big debate about kind of short-term and long-term brand comms versus more direct comms. And when we talk about things like TikTok, it's really quite hard for brands because there is so much being produced so frequently. And if you look at how the biggest kind of influencers are growing their audiences, and that's what makes them so kind of effective, I guess, because they've got huge audiences who would basically love whatever they do. They get what they do, and then they love what they keep on doing. And if they've got their particular style, they just got to keep on doing something in their particular style. That's quite hard for a brand just to kind of borrow and latch onto, because they haven't necessarily got the same kind of scale of that kind of audience that they're constantly communicating. I think that the power of what's happening, the democratization of creativity is a thing where you've just got so much kind of difference out there that fans can just kind of latch onto the particular things they like. And I think that's what makes it quite exciting, but incredibly hard for brands to know how to behave in the space. But I think what is definitely missing in the platforms is the ability to tell stories, is the ability to really have this kind of longer term kind of communication that people really get. I mean, unless you're just kind of churning out lots and lots of things really, really frequently that has got some kind of strategic kind of thread through it, it's quite hard for brands. I think influencers do it with their own brand as such, but it's hard for brands to do it.
Okay, so when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about it. So we're trying something at work, which, like, everybody looks at me with big kind of wide eyes, like, what are you doing? But you know that rules that all the brands have had for years, where everything is guidelined, and it's logo bottom left or top right, or you can only use this and all that. And I just can't stand it, because I can never remember. It's like sitting an exam. I can't remember all the rules. So we've just sort of thrown that out. And I'm a bit of a Mark Ritson kind of Byron Sharp fan. So what we've done is we've worked out that there are some ingredients that you always have to use, like your logo, more or less, Sonic, things like that. And then there are some ingredients which you can pick from. And I mean, I live in a world of analogy. So I'm trying to teach everyone that if we make cakes, let's use the same ingredients to make our cakes every time. So we're not borrowing ingredients to make a cake. We've got all the ingredients we need. But then you have to really fit the mood and the circumstance and the moment in time and the channel and the audience, and you make exactly the right recipe for them. Because I'm not going to, a Victoria sponge is not going to go down that well at a 3-year-old's birthday party. They want lots of sprinkles. Do you know what I mean? So have all of that in your brand, and then actually make your brand show up in a way that is creative and inventive for that situation, instead of it all being about the size of the logo and things like that. Anyway, that was, I
totally agree. I mean, because otherwise you're showing up in environments and not really fitting in to that environment. Yeah. You're just kind of like sticking out for the wrong reasons. But you're trying to stick out for the right reasons.
I can give a good example of who's done it really, really well, in my opinion. So Marks and Spencer's, very, every known British high street brand, and they kind of shine on the platform for using their personality and everything that makes them Marks and Sparks. So a good example of that, we've all done the Marks and Sparks voice, right? You know, we're creating a meal for two, we're talking about our beans on toast and romanticising it in our kind of sexy voices on the platform. Everyone knows about the Valentine's meal, where you get a bottle of wine and a meal for £10. And they used creators on the TikTok platform who did the kind of, I'm going to do the sexy voice whilst I'm making my dinner for my, for my other half, as it might be, to promote the meal deal Valentine's meal, and then asked others to join in, as of course everyone started riffing on and doing that. That is taking their traditional TVC creative and making it completely fit for the platform and completely authentic to who Marks and Spencer's are. So it's using the principles and the guidelines, but it's just building for platform, and I thought they did that brilliantly.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
And presumably that is, they're achieving that partly through, bringing together various strands of their strategy, thinking about how they use creative in different contexts, maybe expanding that definition of creativity that you just mentioned. Obviously looking at their tech capability and their tech tools, working together with their tech partners to make it all sing. Is there a bit of what Ryan referred to in the previous panel as the avocado analogy, which is that there is this moment where everybody's wondering if we should do it now, should we do it now, should we press the go button, a lot of nervousness. Are brands perhaps guilty of not diving in and being a bit experimental, and is it brands that are in those shoes, or is it their agency partners? I just wonder if maybe there needs to be more...
It's the reality, like... it was like yesterday, God, you really shouldn't talk about these things publicly, but yesterday, we're going through some ads with the CEO to just get the kind of concept for a campaign approved, and then looking at it with the CMO. And the idea is, in their heads, is that there would be a couple of ads. We're going to have hundreds each quarter, and there'll be thousands by the time they've been transcreated. So there's this sort of mythical idea that you make the TV ad, you have some billboards that are basically stills from it, essentially, and then off you go. And it's not like that, because buyers are coming to market for different things. So I've got another analogy, like if you're coming to market because you need to buy a ski jacket because you've just booked a ski holiday, there will be things in your head you're shopping for, like I want something I like, I want it to be good quality, I want it to last more than a couple of years, I want something that's recycled. Those are my category entry points. I need the adverts to speak to those things the buyer is looking for. I shouldn't be talking about something else because they're not interested in something else. So that's at least 4 or 5 ads, and then you've got variations on them, and then I've got to do it in 42 countries. So it's really unlikely that I'm going to sit down and do each ad, and that's before you've got into the channels. So I think there's also this, the old school kind of Mad Men world where you'd come up with an idea and an execution. And it's just not like that. And it's then about, once it's up, you've got to feed it, and you've got to listen and react, and that's where the tech tells you what's going on.
Yeah. So it's less of a case of not being ambitious and more of a case of actually having to manage...
To be a business of managing up and managing around.
Yeah. Dino, sorry, you wanted to come in on that?
There is a bit of a case of two different worlds at play as well, because there is the world that wants to make the longer form piece of art, which has a purpose and a value in certain regards. It's like making film or making cinema. There's you can admire it, but that's there's a need to have the other stuff that drives the conversions, the sales, and it's got to have that brand lens on it. It's got to have that direction, but you've got to be comfortable with an element of risk about that kind of creative control. I think that the things that are missing though are some of the, let's say, the intelligence that makes the decision an easy decision to make about how much risk to take. So, we know that personalization and kind of messages with purpose kind of drive a better return, better engagement. That's why we're trying to make things a bit more relevant to each individual person. But we also know that kind of big ideas that kind of like bounce off kind of culture and get people to like follow some kind of movement need to be landed at the same time, the Super Bowl moment type stuff. So everyone sees it, gets it, talks about it. So these two things work, but the metrics that say how well that works compared to that is the debate. It's probably reflected a little bit in the price of the goods that you buy, which means that you can buy a lot of kind of digital kind of impressions and experiment with them here because the cost per thousands are pretty low, and that's the nature of that kind of beast. But then when it comes to that kind of big kind of showcase piece, you need to take your time about it. You need to really think about it because you only get one shot at it as well.
Yeah. So just changing tack a little bit, let's focus a little bit more on the technology execution and technology capabilities. Well, from your point of view, do you feel that technology is driving the sort of creative process, or do you feel it's the other way around? And do you feel that some of the technology solutions, for example, that you're working on is, I suppose, improving that disconnect that Dino's talked about between the creative execution and the understanding all of your data and tech capabilities?
Yeah. I think it can go both ways. So, you know, for example, you can conduct research. I'll use one of our examples. Conduct research, use eye tracking, you know, devices to start gather data specifically on, you know, how people, how users read a web page, read an ad format. You come up with an ad format, a template for it, and the result will be creative. You know, based on all of that, you'll just have a fresh new way to catch a user's attention. The example I wanted to give is, for example, you know, one of the pieces of our ad enhancement for standard display ads. We're just talking standard display, but still, was, like I was saying, an eye tracking device. We noticed that people actually. You know, we notice how much people can pay more attention to headlines. So we worked on, you know, formats that automatically adds headlines to the ad, and like right there, you've got more attention to your ad. The other way around, of course, you know, when we sit in meeting rooms, brainstorm, you know, think, reflect, come up with ideas. That creativity leads you to, I guess, you know, things like, you know, I guess technological initiatives like AI, for example, and all that AI could bring. Obviously, when AI, when guided by these ideas and creative ideas that you thought of.
And do you find yourself sort of working together with your clients to improve that process?
More and more, honestly, we've been seeing more and more understanding from our, you know, brand and agency mainly clients, understanding about, you know, the importance of the role that data and technology can play in ad design,
yeah,
and how it can improve performance. Yeah, definitely. And actually, we sometimes work with some of our partners on, you know, specific research or specific product development.
Yeah. And so that's something that I want to hear from Rachel and Dino on as well. But Nisha, just coming to you briefly, tell us a little bit about what that experience is like at TikTok, because you're working together with, you know, brands and agencies, presumably, other tech suppliers. You've also got your own in-house tools. You're trying to cater for, you know, create an environment that you know that some of your content creators and will be interested in. How do you manage that complexity, and sort of what's driving the technology innovation from your perspective?
Yep. So, okay, we're creative. Yeah, that's an easy question. So we're a creative platform, and technology enables it in two key ways. So one is the algorithm. It's a discovery algorithm that drives everything on the platform, and that's why things do surprise me all the time, because it's being, you know, discovery and creativity is being surfaced in ways that we didn't expect, because it's through a algorithm that is really driving kind of new bits of creative and new bits of vision outside followers or constraints. I think you used handcuffs previously, or guidelines, and there is no constraints to it. And then there's the technology side, which is how can we enable everyone to use the platform, create on the platform, do video editing tools, and that's not only our users, but maybe agencies or brand partners or advertisers we work through. So a huge education piece in terms of what does that look like? It's not necessarily these production values. It might be this type of production value. It's not necessarily, you know, shot on film in somewhere in an exotic location. You can shoot it on your mobile phone, and we'd actively encourage people to kind of think differently. And then you've got, how do we make it as easy as humanly possible for brands and advertisers, which is the biggest challenge of all. And that is really about an ecosystem of partners that we're still working on and still working with to kind of help plug in and make it easy to maybe change around parts of a a creative so it is able to be served, or multiple creatives are able to be served in different parts of a customer journey that we might be able to optimize, and at the same time do that bigger understanding of those tentpole moments of actually, but this is how you need to show up and think on our platform. So I guess the simplest answer is we're a relatively new platform. We're relatively new to advertisers, brands, and agencies. Lots of education, lots of partnerships. Our ecosystems team is working like crazy to try and help enable those integrations, because being video only, being sound on only, being full screen, there is a lot of weight on the creativity in order to make performance and impact and scale and utility work for everybody. So yeah, lots of partnerships.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Dino and Rachel, Dino, let's start with you. How do you feel that bringing together of these strands is sort of playing out? So do you get challenged by your clients to help them, assist them, sort of bring their data capabilities together with various tech tools? Do you find yourself, I don't know, maybe challenging some tech partners, either on, directly yourselves or on behalf of your clients to, sort of change up capabilities to make things more possible? Who's driving who when it comes to trying to improve the bringing together of these strands of data, creativity, and tech?
Yeah, I think that everyone wants it. The clients definitely want it and definitely ask about it. But I think the industry is set up in a way that there's lots of disparate parts often that don't necessarily talk to each other seamlessly as you might imagine. I also think that in terms of technology and data are words that are used too frequently and not given enough specificity about what they're actually wanting and doing. So when we talk about data, I talk about data from a audience targeting and marketing effectiveness perspective. Like, can the data make me better target the audience or give me more insight about the audience? And then can it also give me some indications that changing that thing is going to give a better marketing effect of some specific KPI? Too often we're talking about data that are kind of like inputs, but not necessarily measurable outputs as such, So it's just a disconnect. It's kind of like smoke and mirrors type data. Or we're talking about data that applies to the business but doesn't really apply to marketing as such. So then it's, so we, too often media and creative are too detached. It's common and it's normal for creatives not to want too much data to basically affect and cloud their judgment about what might be the instinctive thing that might kind of make this thing shine. And then that's what makes creatives really good. However, they need to be informed by data. And being a strategist, that kind of like insight is a really important thing that kind of like can make a great ad actually convert, or a great ad just stand there in the, whatever in the ether and be nice but not do anything. What we spend time trying to do is to connect that kind of like insight piece with the idea, but also the impact as well. So really importantly, too often kind of insights and data are going into the process in a brief, they've been read and then they've been left to the side, and by the end of the process it's something completely different, and then it gets into the media buyer's hands, and again it goes into some other world of something else. So trying to connect and link up with technology is a key thing. So we're using technology platforms to validate creative work, optimize the work, and then start to use some of the ad tech tools potentially to then make, optimize certain choices, but then use media buying tools that respond to who responded to what best to then target them and lookalikes and things like that.
Sounds really complex. Is it, are you finding that is getting better? You're saying that clients are coming to you and wanting things to be a little more sophisticated. Are you feeling like you're able to achieve that for them?
Yeah, I think so, because it's with the technology as well, and technology kind of improves so quickly. So, what was possible 2 years ago, what was possible now, it wasn't possible 2 years ago. Yeah. And so we use a platform for creative validation called Loops, and we've enhanced it in terms of how we use the platform. So we enhance it in terms of by kind of writing the briefs and pulling from a source, a pool of creatives from around the world. So when we get a specific brief, we try and get creatives that understand that brand, or or from that kind of the background of the culture, the audience basically. and then get them to basically democratize the creativity in a sense, get them all to produce work, and then get the audiences that we're trying to attract to actually validate the things they like, and with the machine learning and the AI, it can summarize a lot of feedback very, very easily. So that blend between doing focus groups and actually doing a massive kind of quant study is that kind of blend where you can go, right, the sentiment's right on this one, that one, that one, make those kind of choices, and then start to implement it in media because we know who said they like this and like that, and use the actual data in the actual programmatic and the paid social platforms. So technology has enabled this completely, because before, if you had kind of like 2,000 people responding to something, it would take you weeks and weeks and weeks to try and summarize what they actually kind of felt about it. But now we can do it in 24 hours.
Yeah. Quite compelling. We're running out of time. I want to hear from everybody on what they really feel needs to happen in order to improve the bringing together of these strands. I mean, Dino, you've just given a really good synopsis of what you're practically doing and what's working and sort of what's more challenging. But Rachel, from your point of view, I guess we started this by saying, what does good creativity in this digital world look like? So what do you want to see change?
Okay, so I will spit out my W1A mantra, which I learned by watching telly, which is work out what you do well and do less of it better. And I honestly think that's really important. So I like starting at the beginning, doing the diagnosis, doing the strategy, figuring out what creative resonates, what messaging, where the buyers are. Just work your way through the whole thing, and do it by getting the absolute experts, whether it's technology or people, to sit at the table with you and work together to do it. I can't stand this sort of agency, client, walls between things. It's like a dinner party. Just get all the right people sitting with you, start at the beginning, work your way through, and then just optimize and listen and learn and test and feed and enjoy it, But that for me is the holy grail. I mean, that's why I love my job, because that's what we're doing, and it honestly, magic starts to happen.
Have lots of dinner parties.
Yeah, have lots of dinner parties, lots of gin martinis. Yeah.
Well, from your point of view, what do you want to see change in this part of the industry to improve the advertising output?
Yeah, well, change, I guess, more continuing some of the efforts that are already, being done. Was it Ryan, I think, earlier saying from LiveRamp saying
Avocado
that,
Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Forever.
Encouraging just to test and testing. So if we put ourselves goals around, again, bring this up again, but like attention, catching people's attention, and I think focusing more and more towards the context and not just grabbing the attention, but like having that creativity fit and adapt to the context where the user is. I guess I can use another example, but one of the products that we launched recently was dynamic captions. So you mentioned in TikTok, it's always sound on the open web. It's often actually on mute. We noticed people, again, data gathered some data surveys, did studies, noticed people don't usually these videos are on mute, so don't really pay attention to these ad formats. We worked on this feature where we can automatically detect the script of an ad. It then gets displayed just below it, and notice that people actually tend to watch the video completely more often when there's so it's just this idea that with data that we've gathered, an optimization idea that fits the context of the user. So initiatives like this, just keep on testing things, gathering data, and just having that creativity fit.
Great,
the context.
thank you. Yeah. I'm going to implement the Lindsay Roundtree rule. We've run out of time, so only a few words, Nusha and Dino. I'm sorry, otherwise I'll get angry. So off you go.
It's okay. The most important thing is thinking about social commerce, the power community anyone can create. I think that's super, super interesting. And don't be afraid to experiment and get invited to one of your dinner parties. That's my thing.
Dino.
Collaboration was mentioned earlier, so I'll move on from that because that's a key thing. But sharing, collaborating about effectiveness, about the results. There's not enough transparency and sharing of the data and the things that work. There's too many experiments going on in private. and no one is gathering stuff and going, right, this is what works. So even, I would say, even enter awards like effectiveness awards, like the FEs, things like that, get more digital examples, all this great stuff that everyone's talking about, get them in those places to show they're effective.
Enter the wires, November, everybody. Thanks very much, guys. Thank you, Dino, Nisha, Wael, and Rachel. Please, round of applause for our panel.